We are at the threshold of Christmas. And I'm asking myself, what are so many of you doing here and not at home preparing your sweets and the other traditional things that you should be busy about? In fact, at the altar we have priests out here, some of them who are here for the last 45 days. Father Anthony, for 45 days he's here with his novices, and they are here the entire time. The one who read the gospel, Father Jude, has left Bangalore and Calcutta and is here for the last 15 days. Father Joel has come second time. His parents are come from Pune, so they are here. And I'm sure in this crowd there are some of you on a daily basis coming out here. Some of you on your first visits. Why is it that you have come? Why is it that you are here spending time? Seeking favors? Seeking special graces? Or there is something more that calls you? There was this man who was traveling on his private yacht, and after a period of time, somewhere in the night, he fell asleep. He was the only one traveling. He drifted into a different distance away from the shore, and right enough, his yacht caught fire. It broke down. And next morning he found himself drifted onto the shore far away from where he had left. He got himself marooned on an island. Luckily, some of the things of the boat also drifted to this island. And as soon as he got onto the island, he got down on his knees and he thanked God for having saved him. And says, God, thank you for keeping me safe. I'm still alive, but please get me out of this island. The day passed, nothing happened. The next day again he got onto his knees, nothing happened. By the third day he began to find it difficult. In despair he collected what was there on the island, some wood, some things of the boat, built a small hut-like shelter for himself and began to work staying on the island. Got himself to sharpen his stick in order to catch some fish and was going about living in the wild. A few days later, it was late evening, he began to prepare his dinner. He had given up hope of any help coming. And as he walked out onto the beach, suddenly this hut of his caught fire. And he lost everything. Now he was really tired about what was happening. He yelled back at God. He said, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me? I've been praying to you, you didn't answer my prayers, and now something that I've managed to do has gone. What are you doing? And in that despair, he fell off asleep. Next morning, the blaring, loud, hooting sound of a big ship in the distance. And right enough, a rescue boat coming, picked him up, took him back onto the ship. And this man said, thank you very much. What made you search for me? And they said, you sent us a fire signal, no? We picked that up. What fire signal? He says, last night we saw fire on this island and we said, probably somebody is there, stranded. My dear brothers and sisters, God's plans are very different. And if you're here in this place, trust me, it's not you. It's God who's brought you here. It's God who's enabling you to go through a certain amount of purification that is must for all of us. In fact, today's first reading from the book of Malachi, the prophet says, all of us need to go through a certain purification, a purification that's meant for silver and gold, tested by fire. And that purification makes us available to receive Christ. The season of Advent is coming to a close. It was spending time in purification in order to prepare our hearts to receive the Savior. Today's gospel speaks about two individuals who found it difficult when God's plan was revealed to them. Zechariah, he said, how is it possible? I've gone way past through my manhood days and I don't think so it's going to happen. He was turned mute. On the other hand, his wife Elizabeth, she began to feel the baby growing in her. She grew in faith. She was happy that God was taking away the so-called curse that was meant for a barren woman. She was growing in faith, and in the Gospels, in the last few days, especially the visitation of our Blessed Mother, you can see how she rejoices in what God has done in her as well as in the Savior to come. How are we taking God's plans? Are we filled with doubts that God has forgotten us, that He doesn't remember us, or that we are trying so much and things are not happening the way it should? It's the moment of purification. We all go through it, whether we are priest or lay, religious or individuals working. It is all a process in which we purify ourselves. Until we don't realize and don't acknowledge that these are moments of purification, we are failing to taste the destiny that's meant for us. Doubting God's plans is what Zechariah had, and he paid the price, but he turned his heart when he said, and he wrote on the tablet, the name shall be John. His lips were open. What are we looking forward to in order to acknowledge God's plan in our lives? Are we looking for becoming mute, or some sickness, or some bad things? Or is it possible that on a daily basis we thank God for what He's doing in our lives and be able to journey through life acknowledging it? Francis Xavier left everything in order to follow God's plan. He went through difficulties plenty, but that testing and that purifying brought in for him the great success, the great stories that we still tell centuries later. Each of us have a story to tell, but we allow God, the author of that, to determine how we need to live our lives. Let's dispose ourselves to open ourselves to God's plans, acknowledge it, and live lives that are really helpful, blissful in God's presence, acknowledging Him for all the good things in our lives and acknowledging Him for the strength He gives us to go through times when they are difficult.